So hello there, very good evening to all our change makers. Today on popular demand, very exciting guest, Miss Archana Rao. She's a very famous fashion designer. I've actually got quite a lot of messages saying that, asking me why there's no woman entrepreneur on the show. So I'm very happy to welcome you. Thank you for coming down
Thank
today.
you for having me.
I must say, though I've been like asking you a lot of times, it just didn't happen. And I'm glad that finally we got together and we were able to do a show.
Yeah.
Tell me how it all started.
I think looking back, I think it all started off with me being in school. I think I've always been very creatively inclined. I always liked to paint or draw or sketch, and I was always into arts and crafts in school. I think we had arts and crafts once a day in a week, and that was my favorite day. I used to love doing that.
That was your favorite class?
Favorite class ever.
Yeah.
And I think that's what put me through school. I think doing art was just something that came naturally to me, and I just kept myself busy all through school.
Yeah.
By the time I was in 11th and 12th, I think I knew that I wanted to do commerce and economics, because I knew what I needed to study to get into NIFT or fine arts or whatever, because I knew I wanted to do something creative. That's one thing that I was sure of.
Very nice. You went to Nasser, right?
I went to Nasser, yeah, I went to Nasser. All of my schooling was done there. 11th and 12th, I had to step out. I went to Villa for 11th and 12th, where I did my commerce. And then I got into NIFT.
Was that like a plan from like schooling that you have to go to NIFT or?
Not necessarily. I knew I wanted to do something creative. I knew that fashion, in fact, just about was growing around that time in India. And NIFT had just opened in Hyderabad. A new campus in Madhapur had just come up. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do until I applied for NIFT. I started doing it, and then I realized that I'm a natural at it. So it just flew progressively.
So and what was the field that you took up in NIFT?
In NIFT, clothing. I was into clothing design, and yeah, that's how it all got.
And then after NIFT, where you went to?
So NIFT was like a 4-year program. So I come from a girls' school, and I come from a girls' college, my 11th and 12th as well. So when I got into NIFT, it was almost like a culture shock for me, because that was, so I'm from Hyderabad. I was studying in Hyderabad for my undergrad, and in my entire class, I think we had 2 other kids from Hyderabad, and every other student was from the other states.
So quite a mixed.
It was, yeah, it was complete. It was like a whole new world for me, and it was all these kids, and I wasn't a very social person at that time, and I got to meet all these people, and I had to make myself more social, and I had to have that dialogue with each and every student, and I think it made me more open as a person. And also NIFT is where I got my technical knowledge, right? Today every garment that I sketch, I can make it from scratch, and NIFT is very good with that, because I knew how to get the technical aspects of a garment together, and I think all the students would agree, all of NIFT students would agree when I say that.
I think you're one of the very few people who I've met who is having so much regard for the institution they went for in undergrad.
Yeah, of course, because back when I was in college, I don't think I had the same level of regard, because obviously I was younger and didn't value it as much. But growing up, I figured that I understood where it all came from.
Did you stay on campus? Did you live on campus?
No, I didn't. I lived back home, but yeah, I used to go back and forth.
There was, right? I think
we did have a campus on we had stay on campus.
Or something.
Hostels, yeah, it was pretty
interesting.
Nice, the campus back then, yeah.
So I think a lot of movies also were shot in NIFT.
So it's a very beautiful campus. It's lovely, and it was actually a very good space to ideate, because there's lots of nature, it's a very outdoorsy kind of campus. So it's indoors, but it still seems like outdoors. So it's one of those places.
I actually came when you were studying there. I visited once or twice.
Yeah.
And I asked you a lot of questions. Yeah,
I
movie
know.
questions. I said,
I know.
was it shot here and there?
Yeah. Wow. If you watch Telugu movies, you'll recognize the campus from that for sure.
After NIFT, what happened?
So after NIFT, I was pretty confident of my technical knowledge, and right after that, I wanted to go abroad just to understand. I wanted to get more exposure in terms of fashion, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to Paris or New York. I applied to Parsons in both the places.
Okay. Oh, there's a Parsons.
There used to be. It's no more.
Okay.
It's no more.
So
but there used to be a Parsons in Paris as well. So I applied to both. But then I chose New York because I felt a personal connect to the city. And I ended up going there, and that was a brilliant experience for me as a designer because it's not like your regular university town. The city was the campus.
Yeah, it's in the city.
It's in the city. So like every class was on a different street, and we had to like walk up. And the city is so nice because you see different kinds of people.
Yeah.
And it's very, very inspiring. You know, even in terms of street style or just architecture or just the way people are.
Is that like, do you credit that a lot? Do artists need a space to curate? I know it's the very commonly used phrase, right? Space to curate.
Right.
So, like, how much of it helps you in coming out with?
So it definitely does help in terms of like the kind of atmosphere you're in, because I love people watching. So New York was the perfect place for that. So
such a mix.
Yeah, it's everyone. It's such a diverse city. Like everyone's so different from each other, and it was just a really nice space for me to work out of. And I feel like in New York, when I was studying in Parsons, is when I developed my own style. I had my technical knowledge, but my style wasn't developed up until New York.
Was it very different from the NIFT days?
In terms of work?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So like I progressively changed into somebody who had a very definite voice. You know, in NIFT, I was still trying things out. I was, you know, trying different ways of working. But when I went to Parsons, I used to always intern. So every semester I was in Parsons, I interned with a designer. And I interned with some very interesting people because I chose to intern with upcoming labels as opposed to established ones, only because I wanted very hands-on experience.
How nice.
So I worked with a company called TSC, which was a knitwear company. And today, if you see, gender fluidity is like a huge trend. And this is back in 2010. TSC used to make gender fluid clothing. It was unisex.
Oh, wow.
And it was amazing for me because I never dealt with menswear up until then. And then I later realized, at that point, that you could actually make the same item and that could work for both men and women, which was like an eye-opener for me. It was like something I never heard of.
Wow.
And so I developed a style working with these designers.
Very interesting. Tell me more about the whole gender fluidity. I mean, how was the market then and how do you see the market today?
Right now, gender fluidity is becoming a very accepted norm. It's a normal thing. It's nothing to really speak of because it had to be normal like years ago, but it hadn't been something people were speaking about. And slowly over time, like today, it's very interesting to see that established designers are also doing gender fluid clothing because it had at some point become a very modern thing where upcoming designers were doing it, but now even established designers want to get into that segment and be more open.
With the market, right?
Exactly. And also it's not just about being in the market. I feel like they want to be accepting of everybody. You know, that's what I think it was.
I mean, for me it was quite a shock in terms of seeing few, actors, maybe it's mostly actors wear gender fluid stuff, and like, why are they wearing such stuff? I never understood actually. It was
it's interesting that we're having a conversation about this, so that means it started something. You know, people are speaking about it, and I think 10 years down the line people will just not even talk about it. Like it'll become that normal. Like you're wearing a white shirt, it might be that common, you never know.
But I do wear a lot of pink. I think
of course.
You know that.
I actually, Why did you say it like that?
Because pink is associated with
women.
No, I mean, it's a very, I don't know, it's a very delicate topic, but I
actually really like it when guys wear pink.
Yeah, and I'm very comfortable with it. But I remember when I used to wear pink shirts or when I was younger and even now. People was like, oh, you can actually pull it off. That either I get that, or it was like, oh, you're wearing pink. I actually got those.
I know. I know those people.
And it was very funny. I was like, at that time, I was like, okay. And then it got stronger in my mind, saying, okay, women are supposed to wear pink and men are supposed to wear. And now, it's not just pink, right? It's the whole attire itself.
Spectrum of colors become unisex.
Not just colors, the whole design.
Correct.
Aspect of it, that what a woman can wear, a man can wear too. It's quite fascinating. And I should tell you this, I've started watching this show called Sex Education.
Yeah, I started it too.
Great. So in that there's a guy who wears, I mean,
that flamboyant dude,
Not just flamboyant, he starts wearing extreme clothing in terms of, you know, cross-dressing, and he really
so
wears it out.
I don't think I got to that point yet. I'm just 3 episodes in.
I don't want to spoil. But they
Yeah.
really show a very interesting take on that, where you know, they show that you have to accept what a person likes in terms of dressing.
Correct.
And I think we are moving towards.
Yeah, we are getting there.
So so then after Parsons, what happened after Parsons?
Well, I graduated from Parsons, and then with my F1 visa, I could work for a year, so I finished my OPT as well. And then I moved back to India because I also was very certain that I wanted to start my own label. I knew I wanted to do that.
When did that thought start?
I knew that very young in life. I knew it the first year of NIFT. I knew I wanted to be there. Yeah, because growing up, I always aspired to be. I always read fashion magazines, and I always aspired to be that person in that label that's featured in there. So I knew it very young that I wanted to do that, and India was just booming with fashion. It was doing really well at the time, so I moved back to India in 2010.
But like, I mean, I have to keep interjecting.
No, please.
Because there's a lot going on in my mind right now.
Yeah.
Why did you want to come back to India when New York was like the fashion hub, right?
So I feel like my work is very Indian. I mean, it might not be aesthetically, but in terms of technique, I can relate to the Indian sensibility a lot more. Even in terms of like embroideries or textile that I use, it's very Indian. So I knew I had to come back home to start out. I mean, I always knew that I wanted to travel on work and showcase my work in other countries. I knew that my work in its entirety is Indian. So I wanted to move back. And also I felt like as a market, India was growing more, and New York was a crowded market. It still is. So I knew I wanted to make that shift.
I'm sure most people who go there to study art or design or whatever, I mean, it's more accepting there. So maybe people like to stay back there in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to work for a label, if I saw myself as working for an established label, I would have stayed back. But I wanted to start my own. Right after moving back, I worked for an export house actually for the first year and a half. I worked as a menswear designer.
Okay.
And we used to make like export clothing for brands like Zara or Banana Republic and stuff like that. And that was my first experience as a menswear designer. I was the head designer there, and I was making only menswear. It was quite interesting, that experience as well, because you know how menswear is very subtle. Like you don't see too many details. Like the shirt you're wearing, there's the collar.
Please don't go there.
No, it's a good shirt. It's a good shirt. But there's a lining inside your collar. It's a blue. It's a very subtle detail. Like women's wear, you don't really notice those details. But menswear, the details are very hidden. They're very subtle, and I love that concept. I love the idea of subtle design, and you know, I feel like that carried on into my work even after. And right after I finished, while I was working, in fact, I applied for Lakme. While I had that job, and I applied for
Lakme Fashion Show.
Lakme Fashion Week, sorry. Yeah, Lakme Fashion Week, and they have this category called Gen Next, which is specifically for upcoming designers. They have about like 100, 120 applicants, and they select 6 designers every season. And then we put on a show together, and it's one of the most hyped shows at Lakme Fashion Week, because every stylist from every magazine that you can imagine make sure to go there, because that's where the new talent is. That's where they spot like upcoming designers. So back when I showed, androgyny was like really big as a trend. So I just finished working as a menswear designer, right? So it came easy to me. And androgyny was such a huge trend worldwide that I got spotted at Fashion Week quite easily. And then I was featured in all the magazines, and it was a good collection to start off with.
How
basically.
nice.
Yeah.
So it was just a random decision to apply, or did you have like a pre-planned
It was
thing?
pre-calculated for sure, because I knew that the reason I was working at the export house that I was at was because I wanted to have enough savings to start my own line. So that's where it all started, because I was planning for it.
And so when you applied, was it like on your brand name, or what was the process
so initially I always like the term frou-frou. Okay, it's a French word. It means the rustle of fabric. So when you rub fabric, the noise that it makes, that's what frou-frou is. And I saved that like years ago when I was in NIFT. I knew my brand has to be called that. Yeah.
Way back.
Yeah. So I came across that a while ago,
Okay.
and yeah, I saved it and I kept it like that. So it was called Frou Frou by Archana Rao, basically.
Yeah.
And it's such a cutesy name, so people also liked it for how it sounded. Yeah.
So you're the winner of Vogue Fashion Fund, right? Like,
Yeah.
congrats on that, first of all.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what's that all about?
So Vogue Fashion Fund happens in India. It's a fashion fund. You literally get like cash,
Okay.
a cash grant
Okay.
for your business development, and it's
Okay.
targeted towards upcoming designers. And 2013 was when I just about like started my label, and of course I needed the money to go
Okay.
forward. But more than that, I needed mentorship. And Vogue is a great label, you know, to
Sure.
support you and push you in the right direction. And I think it came around the right time for me, and things moved on. Like I expanded my business around the same time, and it all
Okay.
worked out for
Very
me.
well.
Yeah.
So tell me about the experience. Like, how did it start? What kind of designs you made?
So Vogue
And-
Fashion Fund was again a 6-month process, and we had like everybody I looked up to on the jury. There was Sabyasachi, there was Anahita, who was part of Vogue. There was Vandana Tiwari, there was the Vogue editor Priya Tanna, and all these people come, you know, everyone like come together, and then you present in front of all these idols of yours.
How nice.
So that was like a 3-interview process. And we had that, and then finally the collection I made for that was like a mini capsule collection. It was called Carpets and Petticoats because
Okay.
I was inspired by traditional carpets and innerwear, like petticoats. So I made a collection based on that, and yeah.
But why do most people just name their labels with their name, right? So you
So-
have a name and they call it label.
Right, right. So in fact, I started off with Frou Frou because my aesthetic at that time was, even now, I like making separates. Separates as in like a shirt, a trouser, a jacket. So people, like if they buy my clothing, they don't have to buy an entire outfit. They can pick up a shirt and wear it with the jeans that they already have. I wanted it to be very like easy. Frou Frou related to that. Okay.
Okay.
So with time, as I started growing as a designer, my aesthetic started growing. I realized that I wanted to design for a versatile woman, somebody who is like older, somebody more mature. So I also make Indian wear. So I also rebranded as Archana Rao, which is now my main label, where I make occasion wear. Okay, and high-end clothing. Frou Frou is the ready-to-wear line, which is the separates that I'm talking about.
So it's like a general store
So-
concept, maybe?
My store is in Hyderabad,
Yeah.
and we retail both brands. So imagine a
Okay.
Frou Frou would have like a casual jacket or a casual t-shirt. My Archana Rao label would have like a sari.
Specific.
Or like a well-constructed, tailored blazer. So like there's a difference in that.
Wow. Do you enjoy the whole process of, designing,
Yeah.
sitting with a
Yeah, yeah.
person and tell me the process first
For
of
sure.
all.
So that's actually my favorite part of design. So ideation is what I love doing. Like if I'm working on a collection, I'll speak about a collection that I
Sure.
recently made.
Sure.
It was called The Painted Village.
Okay.
Okay, so the collection spoke of this girl. It's a whole concept. Okay, so we created a little poem for this girl. So there's a girl who's really sad and really lonely, and she lives in this very boring village. And one day she just stumbles across some paints, and she starts painting one thing at a time. And
Okay.
slowly she starts painting her house. And as she starts painting, she gets happy. She paints her neighbor's house, and she starts painting the entire village, and everyone starts painting the village. And by the end of it, it's called the Painted Village because it's a very happy
all
town.
not-
Because she
yeah.
found colors. That's the whole concept. So the collection was called the Painted Village, and we created a poem. We created illustrations to develop her story.
Wow.
Every artwork that you see in the collection is painted by me, and then we developed that into a print
Oh,
and an
wow.
embroidery. So this takes about like 2-3 months, the whole process. And I have a great team at work who loves this process as well. So we all work together.
How did you come up with the whole concept of the painted village?
So
Is
there's
it like
so there's actually a village like that called Zalapi. Okay, and they do have painted homes there. Like
Okay.
villagers basically.
Which is similar to the story you shared.
Yeah, it's their culture to paint their homes. I heard that and I created a fictional story around it, and
How nice.
that's how this.
So where was this for? Like, what was this for? And
This I showcased in New York. So last season I was in New. So the current season, spring summer 2019. So I
Okay.
had to show this last year.
Oh,
So
how
I
nice.
was in New York for that at a trade show called Capsule.
So it's like you do like a proper presentation, like where people walk on the ramp and all that, or is it like more of a?
So what I did in New York was a trade show where you get like your own space and then you
Okay.
display your clothing. It's an entirely business oriented showcase where you only meet buyers. You know, like Fashion Week is like you put on a show for people and you also meet buyers. This doesn't have a fashion show. Yeah.
Tell me about the fashion weeks. I attended one of your fashion weeks.
Yeah.
It was a very exciting experience
Yeah.
for me. And most of the girls were taller than me too.
Yeah, they're super tall.
It was
Yeah.
a very different experience. So
Yeah.
tell me about those.
So I think when I started off Fashion Week, the whole process used to like stress me out because it's a lot. You never know how it'll fit on the model because you know we follow size 8, which is the standard model measurement. We make it, we go, then we have fittings for the models, and that's where you realize that it might not fit. And you're not in your own city, or in Bombay, or you're in Delhi, and you don't know how to alter these pieces, and you get all that, you get like cold feet, and you have all these like stressful situations. But over time I've learned to deal with it, and now I enjoy fashion weeks because you know we end up having a good time because we are all friends, all the designers, and we put on a show, and it's really fun.
Tell me about the whole concept of a showstopper.
See, basically to me a showstopper is a muse. I feel like it should be somebody you would see wear your clothes. So I've had like showstoppers twice. I had Aditi Rao walk for me once at Lakme, and she really fit into that collection. It was called The Apartment, and it was inspired by like a French abandoned apartment in France. She looked absolutely the part, and that totally worked for me.
Tell me about the competition, right? In your industry, is there like a fierce competition in terms of designers, or how
so
does it
I
work?
feel like fashion is a very calm space because I've literally, the competition that I have also, it's very inspiring to see people do good work. And also the segment that I am a part of, I make ready to wear clothing that's mostly Western. Even I make Indian wear as well, but even that's very modern. It's very wearable. It's not like bridal, you know. So there's very little competition in my segment to begin with. But even if there is, it's very healthy because we meet at Fashion Week and it's almost like, you know, you're hanging out with friends that you know already. So it's a very healthy area to be in.
So you mean to say that each person has their own space in terms of...
we all have a very strong voice. So even if there's competition, we don't really bump into each other in terms of our style. We're all so different from each other, so I feel like there's room for everybody.
A very interesting take. I would have thought that, you know, because a designer's work compared to another designer's work, it's like there's going to be heavy competition in terms of...
I honestly don't think like that at all.
Very nice. Very good to know that. Because you're confident of your space. And
Correct. And most designers are these days. I don't think we have insecure designers anymore. I hardly see them.
Tell me about your movie space. I think that's I was very excited for you when I heard first that you're venturing out into movies as well. So how did that happen?
So that wasn't part of the plan at all. I never thought I'd get into movies, but Mahana D happens to be directed by a friend of mine. Nagashwin, I knew him. I made his outfit for his wedding, in fact. I don't know what belief he had in me, but he came to me with the movie and he's like, you know what, just present to me. Just tell me what you have in mind. And I just worked on it like I would on any other presentation. And
another wedding or another client.
Like but I actually, you know how I love ideation, right? So I went deep. Like I read, like in fact, my mom was actually reading a book on Savitri just around the same time. So I had her book at home. So I went through that, looked up Gemini Ganeshan's photos and, you know, took printouts and worked on like embroideries and fabrication and all of that. And then Nagi and felt right, you know, because I was given the script as well. So when I read the script, I knew exactly what the character was going through at that certain point. So I could also think from that space. It wasn't just making pretty clothes for a good scene. You know, it was more deeper than that. It was more emotional. So I felt very involved.
Very nice.
So
How did that ideation take place? I mean, it must have been totally different from your typical...
So like we used to study art history. So I think it came very easy to me. We had a lengthy team, of stylists also who were part of the movie. So I worked with them as well. And we dug up pictures, like we dug up pictures of our parents from that time, all of that. So we had to see how regular people dressed, not stars. I mean, you know, the way actors used to dress in movies is not how the regular person used to dress. So we had to find out.
For the overall set.
For the overall thing. And to get colors, you know, because colors you can't really tell because most of the film at that time was black and white. So I had to figure that out as well. So it came with a lot of research, and then we dug into
So good amount of homework.
Yeah, for
in
sure.
terms of,
For sure. And that's like my favorite part, so I enjoyed it thoroughly.
And you can see it on screen.
Yeah.
I've seen the movie. I think you got a lot of appreciation also for that
Yeah.
in terms of how the overall output
It worked
was.
out because also Nagi was very trusting of all of us. He also like gave us our space and said, okay, if you believe in it, just go ahead
Just
with it,
try
kind
it.
of a thing. So it felt good. It felt like a very good group to work with.
Was it easy to work with other stylists or?
Yeah, it was very good because for some reason everyone fell into a very comfortable zone with each other. So we were all on the same page. It was never like I'm trying to sell my story to somebody. It was just it just came easy.
There was no competition.
No,
of
not at
who
all.
should get picked or what? Like,
Not at all. Very healthy space.
very nice.
Very healthy experience actually. Yeah.
So what's the future in movies or?
Movies, I'm working on another movie right now.
Okay.
It's called Jersey. Even that's kind of like 80s, 90s kind of film. I'm working on that. So yeah.
Very nice. I mean, a very interesting turn of events from where you started off to now into movies.
Where I've ended up, yeah.
Yeah. And so what is the future that you're looking at?
So I feel like right now I'm in a very comfortable space. So this happened to me. This happens to people, right? So
Yeah.
when everything's too set. So I have a great team at work, and they handle things so nicely. So I'm working like, unless it's fashion week and I'm working on a new collection, that excitement is not on an everyday thing, which I used to have back in like when I started off maybe. So I feel like I want to explore other avenues. I also feel like my aesthetic can blend into other areas of design, like interiors or home decor. I want to take like a summer off and do a course because I want to learn the technical details of that area and then get into it.
How nice. I learned something from you today about having attention to detail and studying first.
Yeah.
In terms of studying or learning, I think studying is a very wrongly thought word.
Correct.
To every child.
Yeah.
Learning.
I know. Yeah.
Right?
Learning. Yeah. So true. Yeah.
Yeah. So learning new techniques and applying them to different avenues. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So now Archana Rao is a very famous brand, and I know you're doing a lot of work. You do a lot of exports also. I know of that. How do you run a team, right? Designing and ideation is one part of the game, right? And how about the other part? Like,
so that's something I learned on the job.
Okay.
I have no idea. I never knew how to run a business. I don't come from that school of thought. I come from a very like creative school of thought. So I want to make something beautiful, but I never used to understand how to get the work done. Okay, so over time, like first year, second year, third year went by. Now I know I'm confident of running a team because I've learned different aspects. I try to figure out my sales targets and production and all of that. So I think I'm finally almost there.
So do you have like I'm sure you have HODs and.
So yeah, so we have like, I have a couple of designers. And then we keep having interns in the design team, and then we have a production manager who takes care of all of the products. And then we actually invest a lot in our embroiders because we do a lot of surface ornamentation. So we have a lot of embroiders, hand and machine. And then we have our pattern masters and we have our tailors. So it's all
how do you
together.
Source them? How do you manage them? How do you run them?
So I've gotten really lucky with my team, touch wood, because they've stayed with me from day one.
How nice.
Yeah, in fact, all the tailors, most of them are the same guys who I started off with. So it's like, it feels good.
Speaks a lot about you also.
And also they're very like excited to work on these kind of things because even they don't like making the usual like bridal kind of stuff. So they get really excited when I get an idea. They work overtime and they're like, how is this? Like they like to develop stuff for me. So it's pretty cool.
So great. Thank you so much for coming. I think I learned a lot for sure through this interaction, though I've known you for so many years.
Yes,
but I hope people get more inspired by watching you, and you get into different avenues of spreading your art and inspire people on the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.